Hey everybody, it's Ron over at Becoming Enlightened Together. So we have another weekly read. Today is Sunday, the 1st of February, 2026. And the overall energy for today, all the way through the 7th of this week, or this month actually, is Jera. And it's in the upright. In fact, all but one day is energy that is going in the upright, which typically is a more positive energy. Not always, but 99% of the time. That's what it means. But what does Jera mean in the upright? Well, it talks about year, seasons, harvest, the fruits of your labor actually being made manifest now. It talks about legalities and rewards. So if you're going through some type of a court battle or whatever, it does say that you're going to be victorious in this. It talks about peace and commitment. It talks about truthful time of your life, season of truth. It talks about breakthroughs and stagnation. If you've been feeling basically energetically stagnant, unable to make a decision or make a move, that's changing. It talks about a time of peace and prosperity and success. It also brings us, to the mindset of understanding the universal cycles and so on, cycles of the universe, cycles of the planet, cycles of human life, and so on. I always bring up the moon cycles and how that relates to so many other things in this world, as well as the feminine menstrual cycle, things like that. So we're to become aware of these things, to be observant of our reality as we're partaking in it and so on. So that's the overall weekly energy, pretty positive. So whatever we've been working on and so on is just another example of letting us know that yes, we are getting close to the end of the cycle. And again, it's different for every person out there. Some of you have already made that that energetic crossing of the finish line, for lack of a better way of putting it. Okay. Again, since time is very difficult to describe in terms of, to try to make people understand it, since we're all under this mindset of what we've been taught in school, where everything has a beginning and an end. It's all linear, but it's not. And the concept that I always, try to bring about is, if you are looking at a parade as it's, going past you and everything else, you're only seeing what's happening right there in front of you at that point, that present time, right? But if you were to elevate yourself, say you're in a helicopter or something like that, you can say the end and the beginning of that parade simultaneously. So, it's about conceptualizing what we're talking about here. In the Matrix, time is not linear at all. There's a lot of different realities happening simultaneously in this space. And yes, I know we can't see everything that's happening around us, which is another perplexing point of, conceptualizing and understanding what this matrix really is. Yeah, I can't say I'm a quantum physicist or anything like that, so to try to explain it is, and even them trying to explain it, they're just playing catch up with what has been written about thousands of years beforehand in many of the religious texts, for example. Again, especially the ancient Hindu texts and so on like that, but they're also found echoed in many other of the world's religious texts. That's a whole other thing. Now, the energy for today, Sunday in general, is that of Othala. Now, Othala is basically about our ancestry and so on, our ancestors. But it talks about house, home, dwelling, your property, ancestral property, your spiritual heritage, and that which is associated and comes with all of that. So we are the sum, if you will, of all those who came before us. They had to endure so many hardships and everything else in their lives, to us getting to the point now where, in comparison, there are many things that are far, far simpler for us. But also, because of that simplicity, we've created other difficulties, in terms of what it does to our body and to our minds and everything else. And I'm talking about, of course, the pollutions that are rampant in the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the food that we eat, the genetically modified foods. The fluoride, which is the second most toxic ionic molecule known. There's only one ingredient in rat poison, that's sodium fluoride. So, and yet they sell it as though it's some kind of health, what I don't want to get too much into the conspiratorial side because I could talk about that all day long. But the point is that we've created a whole nother world of dis-ease upon the human species, upon the planet as a whole. I'll just leave it at that. So there's good and bad in all of this, and the further we get away from nature and so on, the more, let's just say, damaging it's going to be, to the collective as a whole. And you can look at multiple examples of that. We can see that everywhere. We can feel that everywhere. And we give all of that up for just a little bit of comfort, what gives us that instant gratification and everything else, and that's the lure, and they know that. And if you look at religion for what it is, and you see that they talk about, what they call sin and everything else, and how it relates to temptation and all that, you can see how these things, once again, are relatable. So it's because it's never healthy. And anything that is unhealthy, spiritually, physically, psychologically and everything else, you can see that, especially when you have an option to make to either accept that or reject that, or allow that, I should say, then, we are very much responsible for our present, our past, and, assuming we have one, a future. And by that I mean nobody knows the last moment of their life in this particular lifetime. So anyway, I'm getting off on a rant yet again. So Monday, or tomorrow's energy, is that of Perthro. Now, this is the only energy that we got. I'm sorry. Sometimes I can't see where the camera is. Perthro is in the reverse. Now, Perthro talks about, in the reverse, secrets being revealed. So whatever has been done, in secret, dead of the night, lights out, when everybody else is either asleep or doing other things, and you think you're getting away with something. Again, I echo the words of, the Bible itself, where it talks about all things done in secret are going to be revealed, and that's exactly the energy of this room. Okay? It also talks about unexpected results. Obviously, the people who thought they were going to get away with these things never believed that they were going to, actually see repercussions or the karma for their actions. But they're seeing things for what they are, not what they want to believe. And hopefully that will help them to reflect and see the truth for what it is, and not what they've convinced themselves it should be. So, addictions is also a big part of this. So whoever this is for, you may be suffering from a great deal of, addictions in terms of, and that could be anything from sexual addiction, dependency upon some type of chemical, whether it's, something you're shooting, something you're smoking, something you're ingesting, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. You can also be addicted to time on the computer, or many other things. Anything that is unhealthy in terms of the amount of effort, time, money, and so on that you're spending on something that is overall not good for you, you can see that as being an addiction. And remember, anything, even something that's normally good in moderation, can become very unhealthy or bad if it's unbalanced. So again, the name of the tune is to balance everything out. Okay? Sex by itself, using that as an example, because it's one of the most prevalent things, in human society that is, if you will, abused. And, we all have these feelings, these wants, these needs and desires, but they're used oftentimes in unhealthy ways, and it can become extremely addicting and very, very difficult, because it's a very easy and a quick dopamine fix. And so now you're building a chemical dependency as well. Again, let's move on. So the energy for Tuesday, and we got this energy twice, both for today and then also Tuesday, is, again, Othala, but this time it's also in the upright. So the only negative energy we have is for tomorrow, Monday. And again, this more or less pertains to anybody that's harboring secrets, or in particular the karmics in our life who thought that they were going to get away with all these things that they've been doing, especially to the collective. They're about to be revealed. Again, just like we are going to be getting the fruits of our labor, our good karma eventually. And maybe a lot of you already have. Some of you are just starting to see the recompense, if you will, of your good efforts. And others are seeing it for the negative that they put out there. So again, what does it talk about? Heritage, your ancestry, home, house, dwellings, ancestral property and possessions, inherited property, legalities. It talks about group property, group prosperity, things that are important to a group or an individual, the land of your birth, and spiritual heritage in general. Okay, whatever that means to you specifically, it will be different to everybody. So very positive throughout the week. Thursday, the energy is that of Degas. Degas 2 is, I'm sorry, I missed Wednesday, didn't I? Wednesday's energy is Wunyo. Wunyo is a very, very positive rune. It's one of the so-called wishing runes. Basically, in the upright, it talks about harmony and bliss, joy, blessings, affection, desire, pleasure, fellowship, ecstasy, glory, spiritual blessings, general success, and the recognition of one's worth. Anything positive that you can imagine, if like you are confronted with a genie and you had your one wish, your wish would entail most of those particular traits or attributes in some way, fashion, or form, whether it's monetary or whether it's sexual or whatever the case may be that you may be wishing for. It would be encompassed by those types of traits. All right, so it's a very, very positive rune, and that's the overall energy for Wednesday. Now Thursday, it's Degas. Now Degas is basically where the two opposites meet, and you can see that it looks something like an hourglass turned up on its side, and at the point where those two triangles converge, that's where the opposites basically meet, and that's kind of what the symbol is representative of. It talks about daylight versus nighttime obscurity. It talks about clarity, breakthroughs, and light and ambition. It talks about growth, awakening, cosmic consciousness and awareness. It talks about a time to plan or embark on a new endeavor. The power of change directed by one's own will, transformation. It talks about hope and happiness. We're seeing some of these traits echoed throughout a lot of these positive runes. Security, happiness, constancy, clarity, certainty, growth and release, balance, reciprocity, in other words, where the 2 points come together. And again, we're the place where opposites meet, yin and yang, so to speak. Okay. Now, on Friday, what we have, another positive rune in the upright, is that of Aredo. Aredo basically talks about things dealing with moving forward in some way, or mobility, or transportation. So it talks about the wheel of a car, steering wheel, the wheels that obviously turn. Talks about chariot, wagon, vehicle of some type, traveling, journeying, even in the sense of messages moving from place to place. Talks about your career moving as well. Consciousness, awareness. Talks about right actions, lifestyle changes, changing of direction, relocation, vacationing, evolutionary changes due to one's own will again. It talks about seeing the larger perspective in something, or seeing the perspective on something and then making the right move, or moving upon that. And it talks again about universal rhythms or cycles. So we're supposed to be paying attention to the cycles of the world. And again, full moons in particular, because those who practice the darker arts, black magic, and so on. And it's not just them. People who are so-called white witches or whatever also use the energy from things like the lunar cycles or whatever to their own edification. So, but for the most part, for the collective, you have to be aware that during these lunar cycles, there are the dark magicians. If you are very much aware, like I am, that there are certain people who are using these against you, you have every ability and right to send that energy right back to where it came. So whatever it is that they're using against you in whatever capacity, I mean, anything from love spells to death spells, you can send that energy right back. And they will, if not instantly, very, very quickly, they will get the fruits of their evil efforts, okay? And sometimes that's the only way for some of these people to change, to experience the very things that they never had to experience before. You may be their lesson, okay? God may be moving through you so that they can learn, okay? And by taking that, karma upon yourself, for those, again, who are empathetic and everything else, and I'm an empath, so I understand that, you want to help people. You don't want to hurt them ordinarily. I mean, sure, there are people who actually deserve it. We're not judge, jury, and executioner. When somebody's throwing jabs at you or is attacking you, you have every right to defend yourself. Same thing with somebody who can't help themselves. So, there is right and wrong, and you cannot just say you can't do this or you can't do that, because every situation will dictate, okay? And when you're being attacked energetically, you have every right to defend yourself, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You do. Christians use prayer. They pray, and I mean, there's entire chapters covered about, spiritual warfare. Look at Ephesians 6:10 through 20, and you can see that. And it goes into a great deal of, actual detail about how to, do your spiritual warfare from that perspective. And it's no different for anybody else from any other belief system. Okay? Energy is energy. It exists. Everything is energy. So certain people know how to manipulate it, and your words are extremely powerful in that regard. So you can use words for good, or you can use them, as they talked about once again in Christianity, for evil. Power of life and death is in the tongue, right? We know these things. It's time that the collective becomes more aware of it and starts applying it in a positive way. I do this self-criticizing and all these types of things before I catch myself all the time. And when you're going through just trial after trial after trial, it's very easy to do. But, we have to get beyond that. We have to rise above all of that. In other words, again, easier said than done, but it can be. Okay. Now, Saturday's energy is another very powerful rune. This one is for the god Freyr, the twin of his sister Freya. Basically, he is the great earth god. Okay, so attributes such as being a hero or heroism, your potentiality being made manifest, freedom. That's a big one for me. Both conclusions and consequences being a part of this as well. Your internal growth being extremely positive in regards to your focus on making changes that you need to make, and doing what work needs to be done in order to encompass those changes. It talks about virtues, a time where there's little to no anxiety, where a time where all loose ends are being tied off so that you can freely move in the direction that you wish to travel. And time to listen to your intuition. And that takes practice. But every one of you out there listening, I mean, only a handful of people today, but, I'm hopefully in the future that will expand. But the point is that we all have these abilities to a greater or lesser degree, but we have to practice them, okay? That's how they get stronger and stronger with time. So the overall energy of the week is extremely positive. We only have one little hurdle, and that is basically on Monday, and it seems to be reflecting more towards the people that are cross-watching or the so-called karmics in our particular life or energetic sphere of influence rather than the collective. But remember, not everything that I say that's negative is just for karmics. Some of that energy does, in fact, um, you know, also cover the collective energy as well. We have our good days, our bad days, we have our hurdles that we have to get over. So if it applies, of course, then it just helps you to understand why you're going through this particular situation, and basically that all the energy that's necessary is already possibly there for you to get over this or through this or whatever the case may be. So anyways, that's pretty much the end of this reading. Short and sweet, the entire week, very, very positive, which again shows to me that we are indeed getting closer and closer and closer as a collective wide of being placed over that finish line once and for all. So, and again, this should be a somber warning to those who are still practicing their darker ways. They've accepted that, they relish that, they love to wallow in the mud and do what has been easy for them all this time. It's not going to be easy for you much longer, I'm telling you. So I hope that you have some grain of discernment somewhere in there where you can see this for yourself. If you're not already experiencing this, I assure you, you will very, very soon. But to the collective, and that's who I'm focusing on specifically right now, as always, I wish you the very best. And it makes me happy to be able to give positive readings because I often get, a lot of the karmic energy in my readings, and I know it's not very popular. So for those of you who have sat and endured these readings with me, especially since I get off on these tangents at times, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. I do. And I mean that sincerely. It's not just something I'm saying, I mean it. There's so much that I bite my tongue on that I really want to say. I'm so enthusiastic, and I've been doing this for so long. I want to share this, and which that leads to that, and then all of these things, that I have become aware of, that I have documentation upon, that I have read and really thoroughly looked into, and I want to be able to share these things, which I will be, and to some degree have been throughout my life, but I know this isn't always the best forum for that. But thank you for enduring with me. And as always, I wish you all the very best. Stay victorious, and I will see you in the very distant future, of course, in Valhalla. Okay? Until then, you all take care. God bless.